Bonjour, est-ce que vous pouvez m'entendre? Est-ce que ça marche?
Okay.
Français.
Good morning.
Bonjour.
My job here is simple as a moderator.
Je suis
And
le
I wouldn't take
modérateur.
any more time
Je
because we are
ne
already
vais pas
3
prendre de
minutes
temps parce qu'on a déjà
short.
perdu 3 minutes.
And we have 3 speakers.
Et nous avons 3
And
intervenants.
I will not go into elaborate introduction.
Je ne vais pas élaborer
I will
toutes les
refer to them by
introductions,
their titles only.
mais je
Our
vais
first speaker,
me référer
my
à
name
leur
is
titre.
Adesina Olukanni.
Je suis
And
Adesina
I am
Olukanni.
here in my capacity as a
Je
fellow
suis
of
ici,
the center.
Je suis un
Our first
fellow
speaker will be
dans le centre.
Ibrahim
Alors,
Mulushewa,
notre premier
Eshete.
intervenant sera
He is the
Ibrahim
executive director of the
Mulushewa,
Center for
Eshete, directeur
National and
exécutif du
Regional
Centre d'études
Integration
sur l'intégration
Studies
nationale et
in,
régionale
Addis, right?
à Addis,
Thank you, Addis Ababa.
Addis Ababa.
You know, I call it Addis.
Je l'appelle
As an
Addis. moi.
Ababa person, right?
Addis
Thank you.
Ababa.
Oui,
And our
nós queremos
second speaker will
agradecer.
Le deuxième
be
O
intervenant,
nosso
Getachew.
o primeiro
ce sera
discursante vai ser
Getachew,
o Sr.
Woldemariam,
Eshete, o
Woldemariam,
the
Sr.
Dean and
O
Associate
segundo vai
Professor,
ser o Sr.
College of
Getachew,
Law
que é o
Faculdade
decano
and Governance Studies,
da Faculdade de
Addis
Direito
Ababa University.
da Universidade de Addis
And our
Ababa.
last
E por
presenter will
último,
be Professor
intervenant
Abiola
vai
Sanni
ser o Sr.
of the University of Lagos,
Abiola
Nigeria.
Sanni, da Universidade
He
de
is a
Lagos,
senior
na Nigéria.
advocate in
E
Nigeria.
ele é membro
They
sénior
would take 10 minutes each,
que advoga por
and
este
then we
tipo
will use the remaining
de
time
assuntos.
for
E
question
no
and
final
answer
teremos
and
então a
comments.
oportunidade de perguntas,
May I
comentários. Eu gostaria de convidar
Ibrahim
o Sr.
Mulushewa
Dr.
Eshete.
Ibrahim Mulushewa Eshete para começar. Então.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm honored to be invited here in this very important international conference. I'm grateful for the organizers and those who invited me, especially the Gary and Oba family. Thank you very much. I will be as brief as possible about peace and freedom of religion in Ethiopia. You know, Ethiopia is considered to be one of the earliest civilizations in human history. Therefore, it's always good, in my opinion, as a history student, to go back to the history in order to understand the very existence of tolerance among different groups, including religious groups. You know, in the pantheon of global history, Ethiopia stands out as a remarkable testament to the intricate interplay of religion and statecraft. As an ancient realm that has embraced multiple faiths, Ethiopia exemplifies how peace and religious tolerance are inseparably linked. Ethnic and religious diversity does not simply exist within its borders. It strives as a defining character of its national identity. Understanding this connection is crucial for appreciating Ethiopia's historical trajectory, as well as its modern socio-political landscape, which balances diverse tapestry of religious beliefs. Christianity was introduced to Ethiopia in the 4th century during the reign of Izana, King Izana of the King of Axum. It became one of the first religions in the world to it became one of the first regions in the world to embrace Christianity as the official state religion. Thus, this early alignment between statehood and religion ignited a flame that kindles numerous Christian states in the northern reaches of what constitute modern Ethiopia today. The cities of Aksum, Lalibela, Gondar emerged as center of Christian worship, culture and political life, leaving rich legacy to architecture and spiritual traditions. While Christianity took strong roots in North, Islam made its way to Ethiopia much earlier than it did to many other places, including Medina. Before Medina, Islam made its way to Ethiopia. In 615, during the early days of Islam, a group of followers seeking refuge from persecution in Mecca found sanctuary within the Ethiopian Empire under King Ashama, known as Najashi. The arrival of Islam marked Ethiopia as a site of early Christian-Muslim relations, setting the tone for centuries of coexistence. Islamic cities such as Ifat, Shawa, Bale, Hara, and Jimma flourished alongside their Christian counterparts, contributing to Ethiopian multifaceted identity. Jewish influence and historical pluralism in Ethiopia. The Jewish presence in Ethiopia, often represented by the Beth Israel or Falasha, as you know, adds yet another layer to the country's religious mosaic. These communities have been part of Ethiopia's cultural fabric for centuries, contributing to its rich and complex heritage. Ethiopia's capacity to accommodate such diverse hence an intrinsic acknowledgement of religious periphery groups that have been interwoven through social, cultural, economic trends into the broader social structure. Religious institutions in Ethiopia did not simply serve spiritual roles. They were fundamental in shaping civilizations. The interweaving of religion with aspects of governance and societal organization indicate that faith was not extraneously to the state, but integrated into very nuclei. These religious and administrative structures fostered environments where intercultural dialogue and exchange were encouraged, creating a legacy of tolerance that still influences modern. The historical interdependencies between Christian and Muslim communities in Ethiopia are illustrative of broader paradigms where peace and tolerance are cultivated through interfaith dialogue. Religion catalyzed state formation and defined international relations. As the guidance of one of the earliest Christian religions, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has played a remarkable role as a custodian of cultural heritage and an arbiter of ethnic conduct. While Ethiopian Islamic scholars and rulers have ensured the maintenance of Islamic tradition and laws, both faith traditions have over time reinforced a sense of Ethiopian identity that is inclusive and comprehensive. The rich history of religious coexistence reflected today in Ethiopia's balanced demographic constitutions of Christianity and
Donc cette
Christians
présence
and Muslims.
constitutionnelle
equilibra
This
Cette
balance is
entre les chrétiens et
byproduct of
l'islam.
country's
Cet
historical
équilibre,
process culminating
donc,
in a
découle
society
de
where
cette
religious
histoire
plurality is not only acknowledged but
qui reconnaît non
celebrated
seulement
as an integral feature of
cette réalité, mais
national
célèbre aussi
unity.
donc
The modern
cette-
Ethiopian
cette
state
caractéristique
had
spécifique de l'unité
from
nationale.
past successes
Et donc,
and
on voit,
challenges
en fait,
and recognizing
de
that
ces
peace and
défis et de ces
tolerance
réussites
substantiate
pour organiser la
its
paix et la
continuous
tolérance.
evolution as a nation.
a coexistência
Et
na nossa
The Ethiopian
société
sociedade
de la
In conclusion, the Ethiopian experience provides essential insights into
fazem parte
the
da nossa
indelible
identidade
link
nacional
between peace
e tudo
and
isto
religious tolerance
leve
in recognizing that one can exist without the other. Ethiopia is not just a country of diverse ethnic or religious communities, but a living homage to the principles that facilitate their peaceful coexistence. By examining its past, we are reminded that religious tolerance is not a stance, but an active commitment to mutual respect and understanding, through which peace ultimately thrives. The historical and modern narrative of Ethiopia illustrate the vital truths of religious pluralism as both a source of potential conflict and a beacon of hope for harmonious living. Indeed, the Ethiopian example is a testament of humanity's enduring capacity to build unity amidst diversity. Thank you.
de criar união, tem capacidade para criar
Merci.
Agora vamos ter o mesmo
Thank you.
professor. Muito obrigada.
Merci.
So I'm here again. I
Je
was,
suis
Eu
de
peço as
nouveau
minhas
là.
desculpas porque aqui estava eu mais uma vez.
so
Donc,
what I want to talk about
Eu
is
gostaria
dont je veux parler,
de falar um bocadinho
some things that is
sobre
not directly related to
há alguns aspectos que não estão diretamente relacionados à
dividend
paz,
from religions, but
como dividendo em
which is,
relação às
I
regiões,
think, indirectly related
mas
to
que elas
theme
chegam
of,
lá
the conference,
ao
and
tema
that
da
is,
conferência. E este é
I wanted to talk about some
Eu
recent
gostaria de
developments in freedom of religion
de falar sobre alguns
regime
desenvolvimentos,
or landscape
ou pelo menos
in
o panorama da liberdade de religião na
highlight some,
Etiópia, e
possible
salientar
negative trends
também
that the
aspectos positivos e aspectos
government
negativos
is
que
pursuing,
o atual
which was
governo
not the case
está a seguir,
in previous times.
o
Of
que
course, there are
não
some
aconteceu
positive
previamente.
developments as well,
Obviamente que tivemos sempre aspectos
most
positivos,
of the things I would
mas por
mention
agora
here some things that
eu vou referir os aspectos que nos preocupam
any Ethiopian
e
is familiar with how
qualquer
religious freedom
etíope
is exercised in
sabe
the previous
exatamente o que eu estou a falar,
Of course,
sabe também o que aconteceu
if you
no
look
passado.
at some of these things that I'll mention in a moment,
Há algumas dessas coisas que eu
in the
quero
light of
mencionar
other
em
jurisdictions,
vigor às
you might not
jurisdições
be alarmed too much, but for
passadas não são para
Ethiopia, I
alarmar,
think
mas
that
para
government regulation of religion was
o
very much
enquadramento
minimal.
da Etiópia.
The current trend seems to
Mas
be
o que está a
a
acontecer
movement
agora, os
away from
movimentos
that
atuais,
expectation.
infelizmente estão a fugir um bocadinho do que foi estabelecido no passado em
I
relação às comunidades religiosas e foi por isso que eu
discussion
achei
on this point.
que deveríamos
So, I
falar um
think
bocadinho sobre isto.
Ibrahim
O Ibrahim
talked about
ele falou sobre
foundational issues.
alguns aspectos
I think for
fundamentais
some of you who
para
does not know
alguns
where
de
Ethiopia
vós
is
que
located,
não sabem onde é que a Etiópia
is located
se
in the
encontra. A
eastern
Etiópia
part of
encontra-está na parte
Horn
leste da Europa, o que é chamado a
has
zona
a
oeste-este,
large population
no
of
corpo
about
africano,
120 million, which is
com
the second most
20
populous
milhões, tanto no
Donc c'est le deuxième groupe le
state in
plus
Africa.
peuplé dans des États
The
d'Afrique.
religious composition,
a
as you can see
composição
again,
religiosa,
is
composição
pode
religiosa,
diverse.
entender, é
Just mentioned
diversa.
the major religions, Orthodox,
As principais
Orthodox
são
Christianity,
o
about
cristianismo
44%,
orthodoxe,
Islam, about
como ortodoxo,
34% of the
l'islam,
population,
o Islã com
Protestant,
34%,
evangelical,
os protestantes,
Pentecostals,
pentecostais,
Christians
evangelistas,
about 18,
cristãos,
19%,
um
about
bocadinho menos de
3%
23% é o catolicismo
belonging to other
e
belief
o
systems.
resto
systèmes de croyances,
crenças
le reste.
de outras crenças.
I think
je
I
pense
would
que,
interpret this
Portanto, eu vou devemos
origin of
interpretar isto.
Christianity in Ethiopia is dates back centuries, fourth
Portanto, o
century BC.
cristianismo
donc
na
au
Etiópia
IVe siècle,
é
Islam,
antigo, com
l'introduction de la
muitos séculos,
chrétienté, puis
da mesma
l'islam
forma que o Islão, na época do seu início, no ano
Christianity has
16,
been an established religion.
portanto, o cristianismo como
chrétienté
religião
a été
apareceu
établi
mais ou menos da mesma
That has
religion
been the case
da mesma
until
forma,
1974.
jusqu'en
e tem sido o caso até mais ou menos 1964, quando o último imperador
dethroned by the military coup staged by
foi detonado pelo
junior military
golpe de Estado
officers,
levado a cabo
then
pelos
from
oficiais
1974
militares.
to
Desde
1991,
1974
the
a
military government
1991,
followed
o
a
governo
very
militar
restrictive approach to religious
tinham
freedom.
tinham uma,
And in fact,
portanto, as suas visões
celebration of religion was
eram
banned,
restritas e não tinha,
and pretty
nós
much
deixamos de ter a
the
possibilidade
military government,
de
which
poder
is a
celebrar as
socialist-oriented
festas
military
religiosas,
government,
porque
followed
o governo era
abolitionist
muito
approach
militante
to
e
religion,
dessa maneira eles
and
aboliram
attempted
qualquer
to abolish
aspecto
religious
religioso
freedom
essayé
celebration.
com a
This
intenção de
government was
abolir a
removed from
liberdade
power in
religião.
1991
Entretanto, eles também
by
foram
another
derrotados em 1979
military
il y a eu
armed
un autre
guerrilla movement
através
of
de
Marxist orientation again.
grupo de guerrilha marxista
The new government was governing
e
Ethiopia
novo governo
until
surgiu
2018
até
based
2018
on
2018
party
basé
that is established, which is
sur
called
des
e o
the Ethiopian
governo
People's Revolutionary
que é
Democratic
agora
Party.
o governo
And
é o
this
Partido
party,
Popular da
as I said,
Etiópia
deposed
e
the
este
military government in
partido
1991
eles
and ruled the country on transitional arrangement basis for 5 years until 1995.
tiveram
And
a
then
poder até
a new
1995,
constitution was drafted in
onde uma
1994
nova Constituição
and
tinha sido,
passed in
tinha sido
1995. And so
uma
the
Constituição
framers of the Constitution
tendo em conta
believed
essa
that three
Constituição
important
que entrou
problems
em vigor em
needed
1995
resolution, and that is why
ela traz uma
they fought against
resolução
the military government and brought it down. And they said religious inequality was one of the problems that the military government and past Ethiopia in general
porque aconteceu com o governo militar, nós
and the other two reasons
sofremos
ethnic
desigualdade religiosa
discrimination or ethnic-based inequality
com bastante
and gender-based discrimination. So these
com
three
discriminação de
elements,
género,
three issues were considered to be
de
the
religião
driving reasons
e
for
obviamente
the fighting that took place and eventually bringing down the military government. And so
assim
I will not
sendo
talk about the other two elements, but
eu não
in
vou falar de
respect to
todos os
freedom
elementos,
of religion,
mas em relação à liberdade
put
de
in the Constitution
religião,
two basic
ela existe
principles or
na
provisions.
Constituição
One
ou
is the
provisões
separation of state
e
and
uma delas,
religion,
obviamente, é a
which is
separação do
made
Estado
part of
de
Article
direito e religião
11 of the Constitution
dans
as
l'article 11 de cette
a
Constitution.
fundamental principle of the
e
Constitution.
aparece
So the
no artigo
Constitution has
11
five
como
fundamental
aspecto
principles.
fundamental da
One of
religião,
which
como
is
pode
the
ver,
separation of
e
state and
deles,
religion.
mais uma vez, é a
And
separação
as
do
you see,
Estado e da religião,
l'État et de la
Estado de
religion.
the
Direito,
provisions of
com
the Article 11
provisões,
copied here
Donc vous le
como podem ver, o
voyez,
artigo 11 aqui
equivocally
pode
about
ler,
the separation
e
of
que
the
diz
two, that state and religion
claramente,
are
nós
separate.
podemos ler que
There
há uma
shall be no state
separação.
religion.
il n'y aura
The
pas
state
de
shall not
religion
interfere in
Estado não
religious
deve
matters,
interferir
and religion
em
shall
assuntos
not
religiosos
n'interfère
e
pas dans
vice-versa.
les affaires
stated
religieuses
clearly
et la
in the
religion
Constitution
dans les affaires
Está
d'État.
claramente escrito na
establish a
Constituição,
wall of separation
justamente para termos ali
établir
uma
un mur de
demarcação
séparation.
Then Article
destes
27
aspectos. O
provides
artigo
for
27
freedom of religion.
providencia
This is
Accord
traz, ou seja,
essentially
este
copied from
artigo
Article
a liberdade
18 of the
de escolha
International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And in fact, it goes beyond
l'article
E
18
the provisions of
e esta
Article 18
previsão
of
do artigo
the
18
ICCPR
que
or the
fala sobre a
Universal
liberdade de
Declaration of Human
religião
Rights by
e
bringing out
aussi
some of
des droits de
escolha
la
de
déclaration des
rights
droits
that
de
are not
l'homme.
clearly brought out in the ICCPR. For example,
Par
por exemplo,
sub-article 2, as you see,
o artigo 2, como podem
boldly
ver,
states that
dit
believers
diz
can
que
establish institutions
os
of
crentes da sua
religion,
religião,
religious
das suas
education
religiões,
and
podem
administration
educar
in order
de
to
acordo
propagate
com
and
as suas
organize their religion.
crenças,
You don't see that clearly
leur
in
religion.
ICCPR. So the other provisions
Agora, no
also
artigo
talk about
27,
different aspects
clause
of
parle de
individual freedom as well as
e falando
freedom
também da
community
liberdade de religião e
with
das
regard to
comunidades.
religion. Limitations on
concerne la
religious
religion,
freedom
donc,
as
can
limitações,
be imposed, and that is in
elas
some
existem, são
Article 5
impostas e elas estão no
Article
artigo
5,
that you
27.
see here,
comme
that
vous le voyez,
religious manifestation
Portanto,
des
or
qualquer
expression of religious
manifestação ou
freedom can be
expressão
expression
manifested
de
de liberdade de
subject to
religião, elas
limitations or
existem
restrictions, not
limitações
the
ou
right to believe, but
restrições,
the right to
não
manifest or
necessariamente
express
que as
can be
pessoas não possam
subjected to
acreditar,
certain
mas
limitations,
nem
and
todos
these limitations are enumerated
a
in
possibilidade
this
de se manifestarem não é
limitation clause,
existem
saying that
limitações.
limitations must be prescribed by law and
E
that
essas
are
limitações
necessary to protect
pela
public
lei,
safety,
mas também
public peace, health,
com o
education,
sentido
public
de
morality,
ter proteção da
or the
lei.
fundamental rights and
Portanto,
freedoms of
essas
others, and to ensure the independence of the
assegurar
state from
les
religion.
droits
So,
fondamentaux
religion, essentially,
et la
Portanto, ou
or
seja,
expression,
o público,
manifestation of
essas
religion can
proteções
be
existem
limited
na
based
relação
on
da
these
segurança,
grounds.
da
And
saúde,
the
da
idea,
educação,
or
da
the contrary
moralidade.
reading of this is that a limitation of religious freedom
E então
cannot be
existe,
imposed on
portanto,
other
essas
grounds
limitações
than
não
grounds
podem,
which are specified here.
D'accord.
elas não são
So
necessariamente impostas,
this
mas
is a
têm
very, I
limitações.
think, robust
Donc
provision
c'est une
in terms of
provision
legal
très
statement,
solide.
but the implementation
a implementação,
does not give the same
l'implémentation,
picture.
como
that
podem
there
ver
are
mais uma vez,
practice,
uma
I
coisa
think,
é nós dizemos, outra
always
coisa é aquilo que se
in other
faz.
jurisdictions as well. Good laws do not get implemented
bonnes
in the same
lois
way.
ne sont pas
As
toujours
boas cláusulas nem sempre
fundamentally
são
problem.
implementadas da
In
mesma
all
forma.
areas of rights,
Isso, obviamente,
maybe
é
more
problemático.
in the case of freedom of
E
religion.
cada vez mais,
So we have,
mas principalmente
donc,
no que diz respeito à
the
liberdade
previous
de
government,
religião.
the EPRDF, that was in power
O
since
governo
1991,
anterior,
and
que
through
esteve em
reform
poder
now,
desde
we have a
1991
reformist
e
regime
agora
that came out of
temos um
the
regime
EPRDF
que
since
veio
regime
2018.
desse
So
regime,
from
mas agora
1991, we see
18.
e o que
the
significa que
policy
desde
not being
1991
implemented.
certas
c'est,
políticas deixaram de ser
some examples here.
implementadas.
For
Por exemplo,
example, we
aqui
have
estão alguns
the forcing
exemplos.
into
Por exemplo,
exile
a
of
reversão
the
portanto, do
patriarch
exílio.
of the Ethiopian
Ensuite,
Orthodox
le patriarche
Church in
O
1991.
patriarca da Igreja
orthodoxe
está,
a dû
foi exilado.
The new government thought that
Porque
the
o
patriarch
novo
was
governo achou que
affiliated
o
with the
patriarca
military government.
estava afiliado com o governo
wouldn't be
militar
Il
e
était
então
affilié
serving,
avec
the
não,
interests
não,
of
era,
the
não era do
new
interesse
gouvernement,
do
And
regime
so,
novo.
n'allait pas servir
EPRDF
les
government
intérêts
appointed
du
a
nouveau
new
régime.
Então, o novo patriarca
after exiling the one
portanto, é
in
porque
place,
foi
and this is
nommé
against
un
the
autre
por assim dizer, o
Orthodox
novo patriarca foi chamado
religious dogma that a patriarch can be appointed only after the death.
e obviamente
normalmente,
normalmente um
patriarch,
patriarca
so,
deveria ser
nommé
chamado
que
quando
après
violated
la
here,
mort
as you see.
morreu.
There was
Poderia dizer
also
morreu,
the same
mas não
kind
foi o
of
caso neste aspecto.
influence
Portanto,
that
estas
was
são
exerted on Islamic
influências
Affairs Supreme Council as
que
well by appointing
estamos a
pro-government
ver
leaders
au niveau musulman.
throughout its
o mesmo aconteceu
existence.
com líderes
And
novos,
these are
começaram a
just
ser
examples
chamados.
of
Estes
how
são
des
exemplos
exemples
de como
rights were not implemented.
os
So
direitos
in
não
2018,
estão
we have
estão
a reformist government that
em
came out of the
2018,
ranks of the EPRDF, which
reformista
had taken at the beginning very positive measures, including reconciling the two
algumas medidas
synods,
novas
the
foram
exile synod and the synod in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia.
incluindo a
Also mediated
reconciliação
the
de
conflict between
vários
the
aspectos, assim
Islamic
como a mediação
leaders of the
entre
Islamic
os líderes
Affairs Supreme Council,
islâmicos
and also had done some other things that seemed to be
outros aspectos
a
foram
sort
feitos.
of positive gesture towards
Outros aspectos positivos,
institutional
por
freedom of religion
exemplo, para
and
ajudar com a liberdade de
states'
religião.
contribution towards that. But this, as you can see, was not positively seen by all. Some
Mas
thought that
infelizmente
the
todas
Prime Minister
estas
was
nem
trying
toda a gente viu isto da melhor
was
maneira,
cross
não é?
boundaries by
Portanto, o
directly involving
primeiro-ministro,
in religious affairs.
obviamente,
This should have been done by
ele decidiu e começou a
religious
criticar
institutions themselves. And some also thought that this might be
as
a
várias
tactical
religiões.
move
Obviamente isto foi uma tática
present himself as a supporter and then to manipulate
o primeiro-ministro
the
quis parecer
leadership towards
como apoiante,
his own
mas não
goals.
foi o caso,
And that,
obviamente.
pour
I
ses
think,
propres
is open to
intérêts,
question,
ses
still
propres buts.
has
E
not been
obviamente
resolved.
nós
Bon, c'est
continuamos
pas
a
in terms of how
Esse assunto,
that
portanto, isto não está
could
tudo
be rightly
resolvido.
judged.
Mais
So,
il faut pouvoir le
many
juger
negative developments, as I was saying, and some positive
Vários aspectos
developments,
negativos e vários
including
aspectos positivos.
the
Mas agora,
establishment by
negativos,
law
efeitos positivos
or
ainda mais em relação à lei.
statutory
Os
legal
estatutos
personality for
da lei, por
the
exemplo,
Islamic Affairs
em relação aos
Supreme
assuntos,
Council,
personnalité
which was not the
légalité
case
militaire qui a été
until
accordée
2020.
au
So the
Conseil
Islamic
suprême
Affairs
des
Supreme
affaires
Council had to register as
Portanto,
an
o
association until
o corpo
2020.
islâmico,
Every 5 years,
eles têm que, obviamente, renovar
that registration gives it a legal
o seu
personality.
registro,
But now the reformist government decided that
mas agora
the
o
Supreme
novo
Council should be
atual
statutorily
governo
established. The same is true for the Ethiopian Council of Gospel Believers, churches and members, which is again statutorily established and
agora,
does not
obviamente,
have
as
to
coisas são mais
register
fáceis
every
desde
5 years.
enregistré tous les 5 ans.
So this brings them
Donc,
into
o que
par
acontece
with
aqui
the Ethiopian Orthodox
cela
Church,
obviamente, eles
à
agora
which
estão uma
has
mão
been
com
had legal personality
o aspecto
by virtue of the 1960 Civil Code.
légale depuis
So they are, I think,
Portanto, isto agora
organized.
está em
But the moderator is telling me that my time
com
is
o que
up.
aconteceu antes de
So
1960.
there are some worrying developments
Temos
that
alguns
are more
desenvolvimentos
worrisome, as I
que
said.
são
You can see some of these
factos
examples
por
in which
exemplo,
the
alguns
government
dos
directly
exemplos
involved in
são,
some
por
religious
exemplo,
affairs,
o
for
governo
example,
donc
preventing
le
public entering into the country.
e previne
Bishop of the
certos
Ethiopian Orthodox
vistos
Church, because he carries
da igreja
an American
ortodoxa,
passport.
porque ele tem
This
passaporte
bishop
americano,
was Secretary General
esse bispo
of
foi o
the
of the Ethiopian
secretário-geral
Orthodox
da
Church
igreja
Synod.
ortodoxa.
So he was returned from the
E
airport.
ele era,
été
portanto, no
renvoyé
aeroporto, nem sequer lhe
and
deixaram
many other
entrar.
things that you see
et
here.
beaucoup d'autres
E
And
choses
I would
que vous voyez ici.
want to also
eu
mention
também
that
queria mencionar
there is a bill
existe
which is the draft state now, carrying several restrictive provisions.
que traz com ela provisões muito
outlined them,
restritas, por
found
exemplo,
some
alguns dos aspectos
13
são,
disturbing
e ele está a passar muito
provisions that this law carries,
clauses
including
qui sont un petit peu
mas, por
the
exemplo,
requirement
alarmant
for auditing
requerimento
of all
pour
income and
qui font
expenditure of
qui
religious
surveillent
organizations, which was
todas
not
as
the
religiões
case
agora têm que ser
dans les
passam em auditorias.
organisations
and
Isso
the
é,
requirement
portanto,
for registration
financeiramente
to be
têm que
revoked
sofrer
on some
auditorias.
backgrounds
Antigamente isto
and
não
all of those kinds
acontecia,
of things. And I
por
think
exemplo,
I
dos
should stop here.
aspectos, e eu penso que agora
Mr.
deveríamos parar
Moderator,
aqui, porque o
but those are the
moderador,
things that I
mas, por
think
exemplo,
are
só para terem uma ideia, nós realmente temos
des
tido
choses,
aspectos
emerging,
positivos,
which were not
aspectos
the case.
negativos,
And as I said,
mas,
if
como eu
in some jurisdictions
referia
this
antes, em
might
algumas
not
jurisdições,
look very alarming,
isto
because
pode
some
não parecer
jurisdictions
muito alarmante,
restrict,
porque
for
não todas
example,
as
the number of
restrições
religions that will be recognized.
on
That
restreint le
em
nombre
relação
de
aos
religions.
aspectos, às regiões que temos
comparing it to the
reconhecidas,
previous
mas
situation
comparando
in Ethiopia,
com a
I think
situação
we find
anterior
this
até
very
1960,
disturbing, and that is what I wanted to
isto
highlight.
obviamente é
Thank you very
alarmante
much.
e realmente é preocupante.
Good afternoon. Distinguished audience, it's my honor to stand before you to be part of this conversation. And with a heart of gratitude, I want to say thank you to BYU for this privilege. And I must also mention the role of Elder Olukanni in bringing me here. Thank you very much, sir. He looks so humble. He's a big man in Nigeria doing great work for the church. So I must also appreciate Debbie and Deborah, the two strong ladies who facilitated my trip. Thank you. Let me begin with a caveat, as it is common of lawyers, a kind of disclaimer. I'm not an expert in this area. I have no treatise on anything relating to law and religion. So I am just a commercial lawyer who happens to occupy the position of a dean who is invited to this forum. So we call our university, University of Lagos, as the university of first choice and the nation's pride. Apart from being located in the city of Lagos, it is also located beside the lagoon. So we make a huge bragging about being the only university with a lagoon. I don't know how many universities in the world share that with us. So if you have been to Africa and you have not been to Nigeria, your journey to Africa has not started. So I invite you to come to Nigeria, especially our university, and see what we can do together. Honestly, I've found the discussion very illuminating, so much that I'm wondering whether there is anything left to be covered. So in my country, Nigeria, we have this very big lawyer. I'm a lawyer, I'm a senior advocate myself. But one of the forerunner, a man of massive stature, popularly called Timi the Law. He was reputed to have such a huge brain that the common saying was anything he did not know about law was not worth knowing at all. So listening to experts here from 2 days ago, I wonder whether there is anything worth knowing that has not been said. So from the perspective of a non-expert, I'm going to speak briefly about 4 areas. Give you a little insight into Nigeria. Then I will make few statements, 2 major statements that are related purely to academic perspective. So before I now come to the framework of religious freedom in Nigeria, the matters arising, then if I have time, I will attempt in the final words some recommendations for the organizers of this program. So Nigeria is located in West Africa, sharing border with Benin, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. So to the south, it borders the Gulf of Guinea, which is part of the Atlantic Ocean. So it is just above the equator and to the right of the prime meridian. It has an estimated population of about 250 million, which is roughly divided into 50% of Christians and 50% of Muslims. That itself shows some bias because we have a large population of those who are into ethnic religion, traditional religion that are usually forgotten. So I will speak to that later. Now, pure academic comments. Permit me to speak to curriculum development. At the moment in Nigeria, due to pioneering work or effort of BYU, we are trying to develop a curriculum on law and religion in our universities. And I want to emphasize the need to actually give knowledge of theories of religion a pride of place in that curriculum. Because curriculum must just go beyond learning. It must go beyond passing examination. It must be revealing, both to the students and also to the teacher. And what will make the student to be well-grounded is when they understand the various theories of religion, the commonality, and they are able to identify flaws in arguments relating to any dimension relating to law and religion. So there must be knowledge of theories of religion, all the perspectives. Then the curriculum must be inclusive. I mentioned about the minority religious group that are consigned into dustbin of history. And also the second issue is existing literature is biased against some religion. So we must find a balance to bring into the curriculum other religion that teachers of this course may not even know about or may even be biased against. So we also must have a balance, because what I see now, Christians pushing for inclusion of more materials relating to their faith, and also Muslim, especially doing the same. So there must be a balance. so that at the end of the day, we are not just looking at the theme and the sub-theme through a very narrow prism. If we do, this will be very harmful in the long run and will constitute danger to the society. Then again, the existing literature is also biased. So there is need to go in search of what I called new narrative. New narrative. For example, in Nigeria, Section 38(4) of the Constitution prohibits membership of secret society. And there's a Supreme Court decision in Awoni and Registrar of Trustee that AMOC, that is Rosicrucian, is a secret society. And there's a statement to that effect. I don't know how many people here believe that AMOC is but that is the position of the law in Nigeria. And then so is this the correct position? We need to interrogate it and then push narrative that will be more inclusive. And also, okay, let me now jump to the legal framework for religious freedom in Nigeria. Like in all countries, we have constitutional provisions guaranteeing right of freedom to religious belief, copious provision, not one section, as I've seen in the constitution of other countries. So many provisions, Section 38 in particular, even guarantees the freedom of children who are in school, with certain exceptions. Apart from that, there are some secondary rights that also support freedom of religion, not less than 4 of them. But due to lack of time, I won't be able. Section 40, Section 37, Section 39, and Section 41. Then, to complement that, we have an array of statutory framework which prohibits certain things relating to protection of rights of children, and also continental and even multilateral treaties guaranteeing rights to freedom of religion. And interestingly, the Nigerian legislature at the national level had domesticated these laws. So which kind of shows seriousness. Okay, so now we also have a special provision on the enforcement of fundamental rights. And we have cases that have vindicated these rights, plethora of them, by the highest court of the land. So now, matters arising, there is still support for 2 major religions in Nigeria. So it's very common to see state fund going into even pilgrimage, people going to Mecca, people going to Israel on pilgrimage. And this has been what I call cesspool of corruption. People just dip in their hands into this fund and spend it. So there is also politicization of pulpits. A lot of people have abused the power of the podium, and then initially they prophesy about the outcome of elections, which is a subtle way of influencing the outcome. Then they move from that to endorsement, and they do all this without impunity. So there's a few other issues. Let me just mention the last one. I had something very revealing yesterday from the presentation of the gentleman from UAE. He mentioned the house of Ibrahim in Dubai. Initially, it struck me as something very new, and then I just like it. I see it as perhaps a solution to some of these issues around the world. Then upon reflection, I realized that we have it in our space. Even in my university, we have churches and mosques side by side. Just that we have not been able to accommodate traditional religion. But they have been more intentional by now integrating it with the society. And I think this is one of the takeaway for me. So let me stop here. If I have a little time, I will speak about my recommendation and my final words. Thank you very much.
Please, can we have one more round of applause for our speakers? Perhaps time is not our friend. Perhaps it is. It may have saved us from long speeches, but it might have also concerned us to wondering what next and looking for possibilities of what could be had. We only have a minute or two. I'll just talk, make my summary, and forgive me if I make any mistake in summarizing your well-presented presentation, and same goes here. While I wouldn't touch yours, is people who are able to read it. Our first speaker spoke about the journey and role of Ethiopia as an exemplified freedom of religion state, and gave us a lot of historical perspective. And I believe if we can go into his paper that will be on the website, it may incite us to further thoughts. And we heard from the last speaker the constitutional framework provided by the Constitution of Nigeria to enhance freedom of religion and religious freedom. But he also mentioned points that it still matters arising that may be inimical to using religion as a vehicle of peace. The last thing I would say here is, if I had known, perhaps I would have suggested they bring another stakeholder, group of a representative of another stakeholder. To those who have worked closely with Nigeria, like Marty and Jeffrey, they will know that kings, Nigeria is made up of kingdoms, small emirates, and small ezedoms. And these people bear a lot of influence. An example, a typical king in the West will have a seat reserved for him in all the churches. And he goes from one church to the other. And the community to the community. He is the person who oversees religion, not even the leaders of the religious people. And so when there is issue, and from time to time they meet in council with the king sitting as the chairman of Catholic, Christian, Muslims, and whatever he rules, the community will follow. And there has been, they provide lasting peace. Apologies to Professor Sanni, who is a son. They always provide lasting peace, more than courts in these matters. You may go to court to resolve conflict, but until you sit at the court of the kings, it will not happen. And good enough, the founding father of I-class belongs to one of the courts and can speak to that. And I've been told to bring chaff to court. So I would like to do that. Anytime you are in Nigeria, I guarantee you may witness and be in this forum. Thank you very much for being here.